So it's kind of bad to start like that already, but like don't I don't really mind. I don't really care about it that much. Because basically this is like a stream and also like a summary of Shadow of the Erdtree. This is going to be very spoiler heavy. There won't be that much gameplay. Like it's a recording basically. Just a recording that happens to be done live, and that will basically use the VOD to make it so. But the content is not going to matter. I'm just going to warp around pacified areas. My mic might sound different because I'm not using RTX voice for noise suppression. Because I noticed looking at the older VODs that in CPU intensive games, my voice cuts because of RTX voice, and so I instead went for the noise suppression in OBS. Speaking of, I think there's like something I forgot to set up. Where's the mic filter? Okay, no, I did remove the noise suppression. So hopefully the recording, the stream will be nice. It'd be very unfortunate if it were to be bad, but I'm not going to bother redoing it. I think it's going to be understandable enough. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the DLC. Let's talk about my thoughts on it. Disclaimer, I have not finished the DLC. If you look at the map, spoiler for the map, well, if you look at the map, Lida is still alive because it's one of my grievances with the DLC, which is it's a detail because I want to go over more general stuff, like for example my general thoughts about the DLC before I go about that. But as a summary, I've done pretty much I've done every Remembrance boss outside of Consort Radahn. And I think like the me being walled by Leader and Radahn is not, I think, as harsh of a stopgap. Like it definitely like knowing what those fights are because I watched the Radahn fight, and I think the Radahn fight I would just struggled. But yeah, looking at all of that, I've done basically I've done 95% of the DLC. I can give my opinion on the 95% plus the additional percent that I've seen on video, but not actually done myself. So, how did I find this DLC? How was it? Well, mostly good, honestly. People were wondering if the 40 euro slash dollar slash whatever dollar adjusted currency you could possibly have. I mean, the euro is not adjusted to the dollar. It's just a way of saying that basically, if something costs $40 in the USA, it's going to cost 40 euros in Europe most of the time. So like, it doesn't matter. Really, it's like it doesn't matter. So in terms of value, I would say it's kind of worth. Problem is like I want to compare it to another DLC which also includes a massive amount of stuff. Like if I compare to the DLCs for Monster Hunter Rise and World, I believe World was 30 euros and Rise was 40. I would say that compared to Iceborne, it's okay. No, it's not a fair comparison, honestly. But like, I still think 40 is like a tiny bit excessive. Of course, we are biased with with what we've experienced before. I have experienced DLCs that included more for a game and that cost significantly less, such as, for example, I was about to call it Sovngarde. No, Dragonborn. Dragonborn for Skyrim, which like is like a big fucking DLC, and it costs 20 euros when it released. Same goes for Dawnguard, I believe, which were massive DLCs for their respective games. I've seen that. I've seen what it looks. Obviously, I haven't been into it for this long, even though I've been playing long enough to see the appearance of DLCs. But I haven't been exactly paying attention to their price until more recently as an adult. So how does 40 euro feels for this DLC? It's not exactly, it doesn't make me mad, but I think like something along the lines of 30 to 35 euros would have been a tiny bit more fair in my eyes. I think I think 40 is still like a bit too much, but honestly it's less a problem with From Software. Like it's a fucking quality for 40 euro product. It's just that overall I'd say it we shouldn't reach this kind of costs for a video game because I know you need to technically account for inflation for the people who develop these games, but I think I think it's also dependent on the culture of the people that develop these games. And if you look at Japan, for example, basically Japan tried to fight inflation and is currently losing, where the Japanese yen is worth less and less. But since the DLC is selling abroad, it means that it's getting money that's not yen. So, you know, and that money from abroad now is more worth than ever. So like the argument of inflation is only partially true, but in the case of Japan, it doesn't really matter for them. And also remember that base Elden Ring sold for 25 million copies. So in that regard, the price of the DLC is not as important. Like their difference in their margin. Obviously, they need to make their DLCs worth, which I think it's probably going to be. Because I think there's a lot of people who will buy the DLC even if they can't complete it. And in fact, I'm one of those people. Like, okay, maybe I will try Radan at some point. It's just that at the moment, the reason I'm doing this stream slash video is literally because I can't play anymore. Not because I don't have time to play, but just because I kind of burnt myself out of Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree, so it's only my fault in that regard. Let's sit somewhere else. This place is really pretty. I'll talk about it later. But yeah, basically I burnt myself out from I burnt myself out from playing Elden Ring in general. Because I played a lot of Elden Ring trying to have a second save file uh, ready. And so I played a lot of Elden Ring before Shadow of the Erdtree, and I played a lot of Elden Ring in Shadow of the Erdtree. I have spent about 40 hours in the game, in the DLC. I think I can see that here. 98 hours, I was I think at 65, so maybe a bit less. 65, yeah, that's 35 hours. 35 hours I've spent on the DLC to do most things. Which, I mean, people would say, oh, it's only 35 hours, like you compare to Iceborne. Iceborne has like hundreds of hours of content, but like you can't compare these games on that note because Monster Hunter is a very different thing from it's a very different thing from Dark Souls, and honestly, like I don't know, but like yeah, basically I burnt myself out of playing the game. Like holding the controller is kind of painful for me. That's that point. Because I've been playing so much. Because I'm unemployed. Sorry. I'm at a point where I want to do something else, despite how cool most of the experience was. And as such, I decided I won't bother with the end of the game with the NPC fight and Radahn. But I want still to talk about it. So, okay, now with all of that said, with all the pressing concern talked about, let's talk about the DLC, the content itself. So, in terms of art direction, this DLC looks absolutely fucking awesome. It's so pretty. It's so there's so much creativity in the design of everything. I wouldn't say it's like always the case. There's definitely some areas, like if I open you the map, there's definitely some areas that feel barren. Such as, for example, this area doesn't have a lot to do in it, and that area and the one, this area and that area, they are cool conceptually, but they have nothing to do in it, so that's the kind of problem. I'm not someone that's going to say, oh, there's too much empty space. Because here, for example, this looks like a lot of empty space, but like it kind of makes sense. It's because in this area, normally you have a furnace golem that's walking around that I've defeated, and it doesn't respawn, thankfully. Or unthankfully, because there's like a crafting item. That's something so silly with Elden Ring. You have crafting items with things you can only get once per playthrough. And I mean, I guess you get technically a lot of. You can find a lot of furnace visage for the giant parts, but like it still sucks. I don't think this is something that should be here in a game that forces you to go to NG Plus once you exhausted every source of a certain material to get more, or to use to trade with other people, or to use cheat engine if you're on PC to acquire those items. I don't think people should be doing that. Again, I don't know how much From Software values NG Plus, but clearly I'm not someone who values it. I've never done NG plus 7 in any game. I think the best I've been was like NG plus 4 in Dark Souls 3. But yeah. So basically, like, those vast empty areas, first of all, they aren't as empty. There's still like a bunch of interesting stuff to look at. But also, like, they are here for space. I mean, it may sound weird, but like, you can't have everything be cluttered. Like, if you play Dark Souls 3 or Dark Souls 2, or any Dark Souls or even Bloodborne after you played Elden Ring, it will feel a bit claustrophobic, even though you don't suffer from that condition. It's really sometimes you just need a lot of space, even if there's not much in it, because being big is part of the point. And the fact that there's not much in it is actually it actually goes to in your favor, because it means you don't feel as stressed as to visit that space. You can quickly draw your conclusions about the fact that this space, while it's empty for a purpose. And also there's plenty of space of places which are filled with content, which, well, you know, it's kind of like real life. Like, you know, you got your cities and you got your plains. And in the plains, there's like not much going on, but they have to be there. And it's the same goes here, I think. So it's like, I don't exactly mind. I just think certain areas are either too big for their own good. I'd say Abyssal Woods, it's a good thing, but I think it could have worked a tiny bit better. And I wasn't exactly a fan. I wasn't exactly a fan of having an area this big that you can't go through with torrent. But a lot of people expressed that issue with with this area, and I share it because I think it's true. It's true that this area is a tiny bit too big for its own good. But other areas, like, they are appropriately sized. I think raw is kind of annoying because it's kind of hard to know where you're going because of all the layers looking a bit same-ish. Even if there's like technically some stuff you can make out of to distinguish what's on each layer, it's still messy and not like the full blur. But yeah, like obviously you're gonna have those big empty spaces. We are gonna have space where there's a lot more going on, and either of which are fine, honestly. Uh, Also, let me move somewhere else. What's a good site to take? Honestly, let's go to Jagged Peak. So yeah, in terms of in terms of area, it's still very, very beautiful. Like the boss areas can look absolutely fucking insane. I've looked at the way that the Consort Rodan fight looks like. The area looks absolutely stunning. The boss fights are quite pretty as well. You've got some very majestic fights. Overall, in that vibe, it works. The music is quite good. Honestly, I need to re-listen to the soundtrack of Shadow of the Erdtree because the problem is the bosses are so extreme that it's kind of hard to pay attention to the music when you're fighting to survive, which is not a feeling that I had for any of Elden Ring's base boss, nor did I have for any of Dark Souls, the Dark Souls trilogy bosses. Um, to put that in the way, also I never played Demon Souls and I've never played Bloodborne, unfortunately. I have played a bit of Sekiro, but Sekiro is its own thing, so you know. But like, yeah, there's still some good ass music. Like, I could recognize that it was good. I could recognize that it was more interesting than the music in base Elden Ring. Like, base Elden Ring does have some bangers, but also has a lot of music that's just awful to listen to. And unfortunately, with Shadow of the Erdtree, the overworld music is usually kind of the same for most areas. Like, there's like one for this major part of the area, and one for Shadowkeep. And the thing is, Shadowkeep, it actually goes further than Shadowkeep. But I would say the background music just took me out. It took me out of the feeling, and it was kind of a shame, especially when I discovered this northern area, the Interland. The music should have changed for the entire area, not just for the shaman village. Not just for the shaman village. So speaking of shaman village, is like one of the highlights of the DLC. Like, going for the village and getting 2 items somehow made me very, very sad. Like, it plays with the idea of things that could have gone differently, past that has changed, and yeah, like it's kind of it's really sad what's going on around here. And also the overall story of the game, it's it can reach points where you're like you feel miserable for those characters. In fact, let's talk about the story. In fact, I would say it's one of my biggest gripe with this DLC. one of my biggest gripe with this DLC is the fact that the story is so important to the DLC. Now you may think that, oh, you still need a story to enjoy a game, which I would agree. But I feel like in Dark Souls, not knowing what was going on was kind of the point. And like the thing is, in order for the bosses to explain themselves and everything to explain itself, you kind of need to pay attention to what's going on in Shadow of the Erdtree. Because otherwise there's like a situation you won't understand. And in fact, there's still a situation I don't understand. But like thankfully people have passed it out, so I can appreciate it better, and unfortunately they don't appreciate it as much. Basically, the entire lore around Michaela being, in fact, a big asshole, being trying his best to not be like Marika, but happening to be like the Empyrean that's the closest to Marika in terms of fucking shit up for its own good. Like it's exactly that, and I don't exactly vibe with it. I don't exactly vibe with the idea of that group of tarnished that, like, seriously, the betrayal. Like, okay, from my perspective, it wasn't clear when the betrayal happened, but it felt so weird. Like, because I feel like there was a missing step. Because clearly, like, suddenly I'm against all of these NPCs, which were my allies. I've done everything they asked me to because they wanted to get to the Shadow Tower, and they betray me. And you're like, yeah, but it's Mikela that's doing that. And like, okay, but could I have had, an opinion on that? Because like, I'll be honest, I was on the Mikela train, I died. I was on the Mikela train. I would honestly be like, in fact, it made me think the fact that there's no covenant. It's kind of a shame because honestly, I would have been in a covenant which was like Mikela's stuff because I had I had no issue with Mikela's bullshit. Like now that people rephrased it as the fact that Mikela was just a manipulating motherfucker using his power to subdue literally everyone and causing wars of immense destruction. Like now I understand that yeah, Mikela is not great, but I was still sold on the idea because I didn't have exactly the background knowledge about all of that, and I suppose the DSC does tell you that, but throughout the game it tells it in a weird way. Because you understand that Mikela is done to some funky shit when you talk to Ansvar, and the fact that Ansvar and Freya discover pretty quickly that um, Moog has been captured by Mikela in order to revive Radan, because Radan's soul has been captured by Mikela after the War of the Shattering. No, the War of the Shattering and Radan... Like, I didn't exactly know how Mikela got Radan's soul, but it didn't really matter to me because I was like, they are gods. Like, if gods gets resurrected, I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't need that much explanation. I would assume it's a thing that gods can do. And that maybe, like, I kind of understand it from the point of view of Godwyn being permanently dead. That if they aren't permanently dead through the distant death, then gods aren't. Gods can revive, basically. So unless Destined Death gets released, gods will revive, and as such, I mean, in that sense, if Destined Death was released, if you finish the DSC, then nothing should have happened from the DSC point of view, because unless like every souls before Destined Death got released is still technically resurrectable, but like it's kind of weird bullshit. But I accepted that it was weird bullshit because these are gods, and gods, demigods, it's just have a level of power that would justify such a thing happening. I'm really going to fall. I'm going to fall from every fucking cliff. That's unreal. That's not the site I wanted to see. I think I wanted to be maybe more here. But yeah, basically the lore being told in a weird way did not go in my favor because it made me sympathetic to what Michaela was doing. Because like I was okay with the idea of Michaela wants to mend the world, and also it's very sad because it's early morning and there's always fog and yeah, I want something else. Let me. What does it look by night? It doesn't look that much better. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so like I was sold on Michaela, and suddenly I am a betrayer and an issue for Michaela. I've actually managed to fall off that cliff. Like, honestly, like the thing is, the path of action I've taken, which made sense to me, just backfired due to something that I clearly I clearly did not understand. Um, and so basically, what happened in my playthrough is that I did not trust Lida at all, especially when Michaela broke his vows, broke his great rune to become a god, or to become a lord. Maybe I don't exactly know who's the lord and who's the. I mean, I guess the title of Elden Lord is Godfrey, and the god would be Marika or something. So like, I would assume that it's that, but like. Um, like the consort is just going to be the lord and the god is Michaela. But basically, Michaela becomes a god by getting rid of his great rune. But he can only truly become a god if he has a consort. Which is kind of funny because it means that Michaela is basically replicating what happens with the Golden Order, which does show some hypocrisy from Michaela. But from my point of view, I was blind to all of that bullshit, which is why I was kind of unsure. But basically, Lida at some point asks you to either kill Tiolier or Onsen. And at that moment, I did not decide. I decided to go somewhere else because I figured, oh, there's some other place to be. I could answer that later. No, if you leave, like, the option of not choosing actually means you choose Onsen. And because I was like, okay, this bitch just want to kill people, so I will just get the upper hand and just not let her do a vengeful thing. And so I was fully on the idea of helping Honcent because Honcent is part of people who were betrayed by the Golden Order. Well, they weren't betrayed by the Golden Order, they were more like never part of it. And as such, like, the idea of the crusade against them is interesting. Like, the idea that, okay, Lida says it this way, they happen to be much like us, they just happen to have lost the war. Which, I mean, if we are talking about warring countries, then yeah, this kind of thing is going to happen. It's a dark fantasy setting. I'm not oblivious to that. Like, I'm okay with the idea of, oh, it's morally gray, because both could have technically won. Though so the idea of because again I was sold on the idea of Michaela not fixing everything, but setting the stage for something better to come by, and in that idea I felt like Lida was not helping in that regard, and Honcent had its own agenda. Mesmer had to die for both Lida and Onsen, but I was okay with Onsen just killing Mesmer, get his revenge, and do nothing else. But the problem with the Miquella bullshit is that Onset, despite me helping Onset not only kill Mesmer with him, which doesn't have any point, by the way, unless, like, I think I might have missed, I might have missed him as an NPC, but anyway, I helped him defeat Mesmer. I summoned him and he was alive when I finished the fight. I helped him when Lida invaded him. And all of that did not matter, because by the end, Hornsent just fights me and fights for Miquella. Despite the fact that, okay, he was guided by Miquella, but he also had something else to do. And I would say, yeah, of course, you can go along the lines of, yeah, Miquella just tricked everyone, and Hornset is against you because it's Miquella that's just too strong for Hornset, and the Tarnished cannot be the just so chosen Tarnished or whatever. Hamai cannot be charmed by Miquella as much, and therefore did not join with the other NPCs. But like, understand the feeling that I feel betrayed. I feel like nothing I've done actually mattered. Everything I've done that I thought was good is biting me in the ass, because the NPC fight, the amount of NPCs that are in that fight depends on what you did in those quests. I believe the lowest amount is 2, and the highest amount is 5. And guess how many NPCs do I have to fight? So yeah. So if you say the wrong thing to Moore, he's going to fight you. If you complete Freya's quest, she's going to fight you. And Onset, I believe there's probably a path where you don't, where you don't have to fight him. Because of the way that Lida adjusts a saying based on the amount of allies that she has, like, because Dryleaf Dane and Lida are together, and honestly, Dryleaf Dane was just, like, I mean, I was obviously pissed because he helped me fight Romina, so, but again, because he had nothing to say, I had nothing against him. Like, he was up to his own affair, and if his affair was serving Miquella, then for him it's absolutely fine. And also Lida, it's also absolutely fine, because herself, she's just she does her own thing, you know. She doesn't know. She does her own thing, and her thing was finding Miquella from the beginning. She didn't have anything else justifying the fight for her, because she already wanted to see Miquella, even I would say even before she got charmed. Or at least being charmed was the least of her problems when it comes to that. I want to show you a cool area, which is this. Honestly, like, I'll just sit in an endless lake. You know what? Why not? Let me spread out in that juicy finger creeper water. So yeah, I was okay with fighting Lida and Dryleaf Dane, and also, when she says it, if she has more than one ally, she will say Lida, Dane, and my allies. If she only has one ally, she says, oh, I have one ally. And my supposition is, if you do things right, you can find yourself in a situation where you only have her and Dryleaf Dane, which would be so much better instead of having to fight 5 Tarnished. And those 5 Tarnished, good thing that I talk about it, because it leads me back to some of the issues I have with the DLC, which is health bloat. Now, I know about the Erdtree blessing, and in fact, my first experience with the NPCs was made worse by the fact that I thought 12 was a good amount of Skadutry level to have, but apparently not. Apparently, by the end of the game, you should have like between 16 and 20. It goes up to 20. There's 50 shards you can find across the lens, the Realm of Shadow. Uh, but yeah, there is 20 levels for that, and I was level 12, and 12. So some people I've asked said 12 was a bit low, and I think I would agree. But even then, the idea of having to fight 5 tarnished because you did wrong decision that you weren't exactly prepared or able to do is weird. And also, FromSoft, mandatory NPC fights never works. It never works. Like, it didn't work with Half-Light, it sure as hell is not working in Shadow of the Erdtree. And so, yeah, like I was talking about how the story is more important because otherwise things won't make sense. Because you have to do actual actions with the NPC. Like they wanted to put more force towards the NPC that was outside of just, oh, you talk to them and maybe do something for them, maybe later, you don't know. Which, like, it's a good idea, but it's like executed so terribly and it punishes you hard if you do the right thing, which is so it's so bizarre. Like in my head, I should have never talked to Moore. Like I wonder what happens in the DLC if you never talk to anyone. I think you're full. Maybe you can. You can't enter the DLC until you talk to Lida. So Lida needs to acknowledge you, and Lida then tells you tells that you exist to anyone else. But what happens if you don't talk to anyone? What happens if you don't intervene in the invasion between Lida and Onsen? I don't know, because that's only one playthrough. But I know I just got the short end of the stick in that regard. Yeah, so I basically, to come back to actual fighting, there's a lot of health bloat in that DLC, and not exactly the good kind. There are definitely some bosses that I see like, oh, I see that they are probably quite beefy, but it should be fine. It should be manageable to fight them. Like they are beefy, but in the right circumstances, you can definitely live through that. And also, usually those kind of bosses have some weak points to exploit, like Bale, for example. Bale, I was like just too scared to do anything against him up close, and also because I'm playing a caster build, so I don't get as many opportunities to get up in his face. I'd rather cast spells, basically. Uh, but yeah, I still think the health bloat is really fucking high. You need to have a solution to deal a huge amount of damage, which, granted, it's late Elden Ring, it's accessed at a later part of the game, so it's not the worst thing. Because having a good damage setup is already not a requirement, but something good to have. And also, people will just naturally be drawn to getting damage. Although, a lot of people will also be drawn by the amount of damage in the DLC is so high. People will be drawn to go defensive. And the thing is, when you start stacking buffs, the bosses don't last as long. But when you only have defensive buffs, it can take a while. And like technically, a damage buff is going to be a defense buff because if you spend less time fighting an enemy, he's less likely to kill you because you won't have as many interactions to take care about. But also, if you get one shot by the enemy and you somehow make a mistake that leads you to get one shot, then it's probably not as worth to get as much damage. But it's understandable that some people will just want to play defensive. In fact, for Consoles for Down, I think the two runs I've seen, one was someone with max heavy armor and everything that could boost their defense, basically, outside of the Iron Jar Aromantic. because obviously you still need to jump and to roll, so you probably wouldn't want to have that. But basically going full tank and just poise stagger through everything that the boss can send, and outside of that is the greatest strat which I've seen. And so it's kind of funny that yeah, people will lean towards defensive options, but it means that the health bloat is made worse. It means that basically, if you go raw, that's going to be difficult unless you have a really good fucking setup for raw. But you'd be much better using either some elemental damage, because usually the source of elemental damage are more lingering. Like say if you like there's like a spinning the how is it called? It's one of it's the glintstone spell you get from Selen if you complete a quest from her side. But basically, there's this spell for mages. There's best threads for any kind of incantation users. Best threads is so fucking goated in this DLC. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on every enemy because there's many enemies who are too small for pest threads to do anything. But there's also a lot of large enemies where pest threads just shines. And honestly, without pest threads, I don't know if I would have been as far in the DLC. But to be fair, I am biased because I went for an incantation build, and it happens to be a good incantation for that matter. That said, with the nature of bosses, I feel like I'm kind of disappointed that Dragon Communion is really fucking hard to use in the DLC. I wouldn't say it's not unusable, but basically, if you go Dragon Communion, you need to have some tankiness with you. You need to have some way to have poise to cast your spells, because otherwise you're just never going to cast anything. And also, you need to always have summons and spirits with you. On the base game, you could make some strats where, you position yourself after a combo and then you land a Dragon Claw, and maybe at some point you land a Grail's War to push back the enemy. In the DLC, there's so many enemies who feel like they have infinite poise or just don't care about anything you do, that this doesn't work, and that's the problem is that it absolutely does not help Dragon Communion Incantation, because Dragon Communion Incantation is basically what if Comet Azure was less damage but a bit more versatile, but also still Comet Azure. So you sit still for a billion years trying to get your damage, and in the end you don't get to do that. And the problem is my build was Dragon Communion Incantation and Dragon Cult Incantations. Dragon Cult Incantations, I didn't get to use that many of them, but there's definitely some ways where it was interesting, like the Ancient Dragon Lightning. I'll put it here so you don't see my character. The Ancient Dragon Lightning Storm, or whatever that's called, and also the Diet one, which is the 46 version. I've used them against some very large enemies, and they're very good. Also, 46 Lightning Spears keeps being even more and more based, because genuinely I fucking love this thing. It's so powerful. It like actually makes up for the insane elf bloats that some NPCs have, some enemy NPCs, like not your tarnished allies, just actual enemy NPCs. There's many fights of them. They are usually kind of bad, but it's entirely depending on whether you have a good setup to fight tarnished to begin with, which I didn't. The only thing good I had was that I was using the Ripple Axe because of the arcane scaling, and it only has white strikes. And in fact, that's the main issue I had with the DLC, which was that I've played most of the DLC without a good Ash of War. And so once I was like, you know what, I want to take the opportunity, with the amount of runes that I earn, with the amount of crafting materials that I find, I want to take the opportunity to level up some new weapons to see if I can find something different, because I was growing kind of tired of going melee with dogshit weapon, with Ash of Wars that simply weren't cutting it. And I discovered that the Black Knife, pardon me, is absolutely fantastic in the DLC to deal with the small enemies, because it completely ignores health bloats, which is a godsend. Obviously, against larger enemies, they have like special stuff to limit the impact of health draining spells. But outside of that, like, it was such a breath of fresh air to just be like, okay, this enemy did a long combo. I can just shield the fuck back and wait for it to have an opening to just leave this projectile, which requires the enemy to be still, which is going to be like it has its downside. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that I can actually play around the downside to have a huge burst of damage and mitigate how frustrating some of these enemies are. I think it was the best, the best thing to have. Like they also, yeah, there's like some elite enemies. I genuinely think they should have appeared as mini bosses in some lesser dungeons. Like you can criticize the smaller dungeon system in and the mini bosses in base Elden Ring that reappears as normal enemies, but at the very least, it allows you to have a way to understand what they do in a different context. Like, for example, the Beastman of Faru Mazula. Sure, it's very tricky to fight when you fight him in Elden Ring, but at the very least, it tells you that this enemy, when you see it again, you know what it does. You know what it does. You know that, oh, I should probably, like, try to run away or jump in order to avoid all of this bullshit, or I can recognize that, oh, after this very long combo which caught me off guard at the beginning of the game, I can just punish it now, and that's great. Let me see. Can I have a different site? Unfortunately, everything looks the same. I mean, that's the point, but like, yeah, no, I think this was a good direction. This is a nice wallpaper. Sadly, people can't. Oh my god, my mic keeps being too loud, but I don't see it because the game takes whole of my screen. I stream with one screen, by the way. Yeah, I will just remove that for anyone that wants it. Anyone, if there's anyone at least. If anyone wants to take a screenshot, though obviously there's better ways than that to get that stuff. Yeah, so massive amount of health bloat. It wasn't all bosses though, so on like the last Remembrance boss I've done was Midra, the Frenzied Flame God. It was a nice fight. It was not the best fight, but it was certainly not the worst. Like many, I've absolutely loathed fighting ancient dragons and Sacks. Like, unbelievably bad. I can't believe I can't believe it got past any sort of testing. You know what? I'm going to lower this because otherwise, like I speak loudly, okay? I speak loudly. I'm going to lower my mic a bit, so maybe it won't be as harsh on the ears now. But yeah, Midra was I jokingly called him Mid-Ra after doing it, but honestly, like his fight was fine, and honestly, he like come to think of it, it was kind of good as a fight. Um, it definitely helps. Like something I really like about the DLC is that there's so many enemies which completely change the shape. The shape of threat completely changes once you use the elemental buffs. like fighting the giant furnace is way more manageable if you have Flame Protect Me. Fighting the Putrescent Knight, I think it's called, or whatever that's called, the Putrescent Knight with Great Magic Barrier, like suddenly, oh, the phase transition doesn't scare me anymore, and the random magic damage that it spreads out because I can actually tank it, which is kinda, it's nice to see. Yeah, it's nice. You actually get to, you actually get some freedom in that. Um, but yeah, Great Barriers being very useful to counter some elemental bullshit. That's always nice. Also, there's kind of a lot of enemies that are actually weak to only damage, surprisingly, in that DLC. Unfortunately, I don't have, despite going Faith and Arcane, I don't have that many good setup for Faith spell. But thankfully, Sacred Blade is so still absolutely busted for how simple it is and how rewarding it is to land. So in the end, if I needed only damage, I had all the only damage I ever needed. Uh, Bless Sacred Blade as pleonasmistic it is. Like it, it absolutely gets to be the funniest thing to use against the many weak to holy damage enemies in the DLC. But yeah, so Midra was fine. Purchased Knight was kind of weird to start to fight. Like, I get the idea of, oh, you need a big entrance. Honestly, I was more scared because I thought it was like going to be so much more meaningful to be in that bit. And in the end, you just find the Saint Trina, which is good because it's like kind of interesting interactions. But it's kind of like the entrance did not justify the fight and what comes after, basically. But it's okay, honestly. It's okay. I'm not completely mad. Putrescent Knight was, I think, fine. It was definitely punishing me for roll spam. But because I was playing like I was in a hurry, I did not exactly learn to do him well. I just learned to just try to mitigate the worst part of my fights and then try to punish him as best as I can when he would start focusing the mimic. It's basically what I've done for most fights. Uh, but like there's definitely some fights I want to refight without a summon, but there's others that I just don't want to bother with it. Like I got second try Relana. I've seen how bullshit her second phase is. I did not see it because she she did her one big attack to start her second phase. She got staggered and then got very lucky that the mimic decided uh, to piss the shit out of her during the fight. So basically, I didn't have to go through that horrendous second phase. And yeah, so I have no issues with Rolana, but I can absolutely understand why some people would. I've seen it again. I think it's fine-ish, but I think it should not have been a stopgap in a boss this hard that can punishes you so brutally should not have been a stopgap in the DLC. Though apparently, let me check a bit. Apparently, you can actually skip that fight. Apparently, you can actually reach the one of the forts. Let me see. Shit. No, I don't want to do that. Ah! Apparently, there is a... I think I saw someone mention that there is actually a spirit spring that you can take like you can actually go down here, and there's apparently a spearing string that you can take to reach this fort. That or another one, I don't remember. But basically, there's apparently a way to skip some of that. But it's just unclear. Or maybe it was Fog Rift Fort. I don't exactly know. I've only seen it in the video description of someone doing a damageless run against Relana. So apparently she can be optional, but the path to find it is obviously very weird. Overall, like, I got through it, so I can't really know for sure. Also, something that disappointed me is the fact that this entire area that you can see here, which is very rad, this place is absolutely pointless. Because you would think, like, if it's the first Legacy dungeon you do, you would think that going up here would be extremely meaningful, because, like, it's the first thing you see, it's the first time you encounter those barbs. You're like, okay, so I will have to unlock everything, and then I would have to fight this enemy at some point in order to access it from here. No. You don't need to do any of that, because when you burn the tree here, you get warped here, and literally there's like, I mean, I can show it. I can show it, because I think like it's so dumb. It's so dumb in my eyes. Let me just. I don't know if there's an enemy. I think there's like one enemy, so I'll be safe. By the way, what I'm currently have, it's not the build that I was using. I was playing with 10 endurance for the entire DLC, and I went through most of it just fine. It's just the end I wanted more defense. So basically, you arrive here. You go up here. I might need the odd. I need the odd. You arrive up here. There is nothing here. It just shows you some stuff, which you don't care about. I can really feel the Erdtree blessing and the fact that I have much more armor. Like, I was thinking, like, I don't know, maybe in a regular situation I would have taken much more damage. But anyway, you go above this stairs, you reach this place, which, fortunately for you, if you jump, you realize, oh, there's a side of grace. What happens if I go down that path? What happens if I take this elevator and go towards that path? Well, it might surprise you. But you happen to be here, at Belluret Tower Settlement, the other entrance. So, tell me, FromSoft, what was the point of doing all of that jazz with the alternate entrance, which ends up not fucking mattering? Like, the only point of all of that is maybe to have this NPC telling you this, and having a message from Lida telling you to go find her somewhere else. The only true reward that you get is from here, the revered spirit ashes. Literally the only thing you get from this fight. It's weird. It's weird. I genuinely don't understand what was the point of all of that. I guess they wanted to make you Link, but also they didn't want people to. I don't understand. There was no point in warping the player. Like, if you wanted to make this a mandatory place to go to have your very cool fight against the divine beast dancing lion, then just have like an NPC giving you a message saying you, oh, you need to go through Belrat in order to go there because the entrance is here. Literally, like the entrance to Inir Elim, the entrance to Inir Elim is absolutely pointless. Like, it's a part of the map you could genuinely remove, and it wouldn't change shit. It's like, I don't understand why they went this way. I guess I'll never know. Anyway, let's go chill somewhere else and talk about some other remembrance boss. Let's go, I don't know. Let's take a chill pill in Abyssal Woods, because surely this is the most relaxing place of this DLC. Because surely this inspires. Actually, no. I will go to the. I will go here. This place here is actually kind of nice, I think. Like you're in the middle of water and all of that. Oh yeah, but it's nice, isn't it? Anyway. I need to remove the compass. That's the thing I hate about the auto HUD, is that it never removes the compass. So let's talk about other remembrance. The Erdtree, the Erdtree avatar was kind of a funny fight, honestly. Like, it's kind of weird that it's a 3-phase fight and the third phase starts with an absolute nuke. There's a lot of nukes, by the way. I'm not exactly a fan of that kind of design. Like, you need better tell for the nukes. Some nukes just comes out of nowhere, which is kind of weird. But sometimes it's fine. I'm still surprised by the amount of nukes that exist in that DLC, because it feels kind of cheap. In terms of difficulty, it feels kind of cheap. But anyway, the strategy, it was interesting, but its weakness to fire is still an easy fight. It's a quite easy fight, to be honest. Even if you tank everything, even with my shitty build, with you want to see my drip? The drips that I had for the entire thing. For most of the DLC, I was running this alongside. You would think, oh, maybe a Red Mint Circle or maybe a Mesmer Armor. No, I was running. Shit, it's not even here. I was sought by wait. I was wearing this, and this, I think it was the Scaled Gauntlet, and here it was Blight Greed. Basically, that's mostly how I looked for the entire DLC. And the only buff in defense I had was Dragon Crest's Great Shield Talisman and Erdtree Favors +1, because I haven't defeated Malikev in that save file, so I don't have access to the Erdtree Favors +2. Also, like this, basically, if I redo a playthrough of Shadow of the Erdtrees, it's basically some items that are so important to get that I can't believe they are so awkward to get. And that item, and this is one of those items. It doesn't take much. Technically, you might need to fight Verlana, but if the theory that I explained earlier, that you can actually skip Verlana, exists, then you don't need to fight a single boss to get it, because you only need to reach Cathedral of Manus Metier, which requires you to go through Murf ruins. By the way, this part of the map, it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to reach, because I've seen the hole here. I thought the hole was too deep. I thought you could not reach the bottom, and it was only to entice you to find another way to reach the bottom. But no, you just have to be a bit good at platforming, and then you can reach all of this part. So to get that, you get to the Cathedral of Manus Metier. The guy there will give you one thing, and then you need to go to the south of the map to Cerulean Coast, which I also struggled to get to for a very stupid reason that I'm going to show you now. You go to the stone monument and you just use you just go to the bell in the middle, and it gives you this thing. And honestly, given the amount of damage you're going to take in the DLC, it's like one of the best talismans in the DLC for the DLC. But basically, this dude tells you, I was told a coffin could convey its passenger upon a gentle cruise to the velvet garden of deepest purple. Oh, to somber and to such paradise. And my stupid ass was like, oh, it must be like Elden Ring. Base Elden Ring. So I will try to find a coffin. So I tried, I went throughout this entire river, reached here, realized that I could not go there. I was like, okay, so I need to explore around here, something like that, here. I don't even remember how you reach ancient ruins. There might be, I think maybe there's like a path down here that allows you to reach it, but I don't remember exactly. Oh yeah, no, right, there's like a tunnel that goes from here to here, and then you go here. Okay. But basically I was like, okay, I'm going to explore more. So I went up here, then I went down to the temple ruins, realized that, oh, there's no coffin, so I need to go higher. So I went through the entire way here, reaching this catacomb, where I saw a lot of coffins. I was like, oh, maybe this is like a coffin I could take to actually reach that place. But turns out, what my dipshit ass just had to do was walk forward to realize that one, there were things here, two, they looked very reachable, and three, that you can just drop down here and reach that place. Because from my point of view, I did not go far enough in the cave, because I stayed where I thought the cave was large but empty, that there was nothing else. So, and again, it might have been foggy, so I could not see. You cannot see the trees from here. You can only see the tip of the trees over the waterfall. And I was like, I have to find a coffin, which I did, but not really. Like, it also took me an embarrassing amount of time to find this place, because you know the painting room. I found that painting room. And I thought I had hit every wall. But I did not hit the right one. The wall right of the painting I did not hit. And after that, you do find a coffin that takes you here. Though it doesn't get you to the place of Deep Purple, because it takes you to a place of Deep Yellow, because it's the Abyssal Woods. But I did find the place of Deep Purple. So I eventually reached Cerulean Coast. But basically you just go through that. You can skip everything. You find yourself in this place where you have many enemies, but you can just mostly ignore them. Reach the middle, activate the thing, and get one of the more valuable talismans in the DLC. So it's like honestly, the talismans is another thing that's kind of cool. There's a lot of very creative talisman in this DLC. I don't have all of them, obviously, but because I know some stuff I did not go through. So like, first of all, you get +3 versions of certain stuff. which is nice. You got +3 Crimson Ember Medallion. You got a Blessed Blue Dew Talisman, which would be so fucking OP if it was in the base game. You've got two-headed turtle talisman. Basically you got upgrades, but you got some new ones, and the new ones are kind of interesting. They don't just raise a stat or something like that. Raise resistance up to the last ailment suffered. That's excellent. If you can survive a fight and an ailment was causing you trouble, you can be very resistant to that thing. Two-handed sword talisman apparently is absolutely busted. Pearl shield talisman is also very good. And these are like bow related, so not that it matters. This allows you to cast spells very quickly. It's not actually as useful for me as incantation caster because the initial startup of the spell is low, but the total animation of the spell is still going to take a while. This is very interesting. Enhances attacks executed after maintaining the same stance for a while. It allows you to be a weeb. To use the katana, stay on hold, and then release, and you get boosted for that. That is also interesting. That is really funny because there's a bunch of new weapons called the Smith Script weapon. So, and those weapons can... So for the Smith Script dagger, it's actually an entirely new weapon. But for the others, it's just a base weapon that has a unique property. So, let's say the Smith Script axe. It has regular normal light attacks, but if you do heavy attacks, it's a range attack. So it's kind of cool that we got some stuff for the base weapons. I forgot what I was talking about. There's also this kind of thing, which is very cool. Honestly, I want to try something. I need a random enemy that's kind of weak. That's going to be... You know what? I think I can find it in Belurats. Let me think. I'm trying to think about a place where there's a weak enemy right next to you. I think entrance of Cerulean Coast. I think there's like a bunch of Arlos. I want to see the riposte animation. I'm actually curious. Like this is, I'm getting off track, but I kind of forgot what I was thinking about a bit. So yeah, I was talking about some unique stuff that we got in the DLC. This should do. Can I find one that's kind of isolated? Thank you. Feels like I can't find one. You know what? Fuck it. It's like it's not hard to find. Okay. I don't know how much it's going to take because I don't know the health pool of this enemy. Okay, I got him at the end. Oh, I want to see the... okay, first of all, I'm going to turn back on the art. Oh, I did not take that much damage. Maybe I could go into a jail, honestly. I'm getting off track, but like... I was about to finish the stream. It's not going to be a long stream because again it's like more of a video. I wanted to talk about Remembrance. I just test that thing and I talk about the other Remembrance, okay? Okay. Probably not that many to do left. Okay, that's not the right jail to do that. Let's go to Belurat. I think Belurat you have one enemy that attacks you at the beginning. And that will be my test enemy. Should be around here. Oops. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. That distraction aside, let's go back to Remembrance boss. So let me try to remember everything that there is. So Dancing Lion was fine in my eyes. Relana, I kind of cheesed it. Bale was kind of awesome. It was really bad with my build, but thankfully, on my winning attempt, Bale's AI froze. And before anyone says, "Oh, you haven't beat him legit," I had an attempt before that was like 90% of his HP. So it was not like it's not like I could not do it. I wasn't that far from doing it. It just happened that his AI somehow froze while Igor was next to the next to the gate. His AI froze, so basically I had nothing to do but take the win. But I still think it was an interesting fight. It's a bit too spammy in my eyes. I think there's better ways to have done some of his attacks to feel less spammy. But the thing is, because it's actually huge, he cannot chain too many attacks. Because you can't make a very spammy a large enemy. And a large enemy needs to have more direct attacks, unlike Relana, which can chain a lot of small attacks. You can't have small attacks with something like Bale. So that worked in his favor in my eyes. Cerulean Coast. So yeah, I talked about the Putrescent Knight. Really weird fight, but overall kind of cool. The Meteor fight. The Meteor fight was kind of interesting, honestly. It did not take me that many attempts, but it was very interesting. I really loved the design of this absolutely gross figure. And the fight wasn't exactly frustrating, although the big black hole attacks, again, the nuke attacks are like kind of the worst part about it. But even then, it was a very cool nuke attack. And honestly, by the end, I was scared. I was scared for many enemies to just kill me as they go out. So I already talked about Midra, Relana. I talked about it. Mesmer. I haven't talked about Mesmer. He's like the flagship of. It's kind of funny that people have used the term flagship to describe Mesmer. Flagship is typically something that you find in Monster Hunter, but it absolutely works for Mesmer in that case, because basically flagship is the character that you will see, but typically it's not the final boss, because you won't spoil the final boss. So Mesmer being people say it's a midway point. I would say it's more like 70% of the way there. First of all, because compared to the main bosses, it's like the third boss you need to fight. There's like 5, technically 6 boss you fight in the base game. You got Relana, you got some lesser bosses like the Golden Hippopotamus. You got Mesmer. Yeah, no, actually, you only have like 4. You have like Relana, but again, it's not even sure you need to deal her. Mesmer, you do need to fight him. You've got after Mesmer, you have Romula. Romuta. Apologies. It's like my favorite boss. Romina. Romina, there you go. Romina, and then in the tower you have Lida and Consort Radahn, basically. So that's the minimum amount of boss, and obviously there's like way more Remembrance boss. Yeah, let's talk about Romina. It's my favorite boss fight of the DLC. It was so fucking cool. It has an amazing design. You would think the gimmick would be a problem, but turns out she has very good tails for her attacks, which can catch you off guard, but are not bullshit. She has very little things that are bullshit. Like, the bullshit attacks actually don't one-shot you, so it's absolutely fine. And like, yeah, Romina, it has Scarlet Rot, but Scarlet Rot is just a reminder that you can't tank forever, which is absolutely fine because you can steer the fuck away from her. But honestly, like thinking about it, like it's like one of those boss fights I absolutely want to fight again, but without the spirits, without a caster build, with a pure melee build, I think this boss would be fine. And also, I absolutely love that she has a airborne attack that has a little blink on her when she's about to land. And I'm like, yes, that's the kind of good design I really, really like. And basically, I think the design is awesome. This weird depiction of Rot, which is a centipede. I mean, it's a mix of a centipede and a hair piercer, I think it's called. So you've got that. The back is a scorpion, and she has butterfly wings. It's very nice to look at, and it was a very fun fight to do. Like, legit, when I did her, I was kind of pissed because I was like, yep, I don't think it's going to get better than this, and I was right. I was right. I did not find a boss that was as fun to fight as Romina. It's absolutely my highlight of the DLC in terms of boss fights. So Mesmer, I keep missing Mesmer because like there's not much to say about him. His second phase is very weird and kind of bullshit, but honestly, he's like rather fun. He does have a lot of mixer attacks. So a mixer attack is basically you get hit by the start of the attack, you will struggle to get out of it. And he has many of those, but honestly, like Mesmer is not even that hard compared to the rest of the DLC. Like Relana certainly looks harder than Mesmer. What else have I got? Actually, I'm an idiot. I have all the remembrances, so I know what I could have done. And honestly, I've talked about most of them. Because it's like Dancing Lion, some Mother of Fingers, Impaler. And the only one I haven't talked about is Wild Boar Rider. So Arc Rider is in this game. A lot of people I've seen were complaining about it. A lot of people might have not noticed that you can actually ride Torrent during this fight. And so the charge that seems undodgeable can just be jumped by using torrents. It's that easy, people. Like, dude, I thought there were many more remembrances, but actually that's it. There's just a lot of non-remembrance mini-boss that stick around, which were still kind of cool. So yeah, that guy, definitely hard to get in on it, but once you figure out how to get out safely to summon your spirits, and you actually work around how his gravity attacks work, he's honestly fine. He's honestly pretty fine. I want to show one last place, maybe. Let's show the cathedral. So yeah, the Cathedral of Manus Metier. Also, like, the way I heard about the Metier boss fight, literally I was watching a streamer, he's a French streamer called Chemist, who was doing his third run of the DLC, because he was doing a Rune level 1 run, which is insane. And he did the DLC already twice. He had one playthrough in NG+1, he had one playthrough in 10 hours, and he had one, and he was doing that, and he was like, oh, there's a boss at Magna Metier. And I was like, hold the fucking phone. I look it up, and turns out the only thing I needed to do was to go up to the throne to reveal this ladder. Because this ladder takes you to a cave, and that cave is the entrance of the DLC. Of the boss fight. Splendid entrance, by the way. I fucking love the design of the finger ruins. And in that place, you actually get invaded by another NPC. I wonder how you get those armors that they wear. I hope you can get them, because they look cool. But yeah, you find yourself in this place. But I did not find it. It was like the second to last remembrance that I was missing. I was missing Midra and this one. But yeah, I've talked about all the remembrances. I'm not going to talk about everything. I'm not going to talk about the new weapons. There's some cool stuff, even for regular existing type of weapons. There's some cool stuff. The new spells, I haven't used most of them, honestly. One thing I've used a lot, however, is this Ash of War, whose design is absolutely fucking brilliant. I love it. If you poison an enemy, the Ash of War deals a burst of damage. That's such a good thing. It's so cool. Also, yeah, but I'm not going to bother with the many Ashes of War that you can find in the DLC. See, because a lot of them are like simple, some of them looks absolutely broken, like Blink Bolt. Blink Bolt looks... It looks unreal. Aspect of the Crucible Wings is very weird. Oh! Oh yeah, right, you can give Ash of War to perfume bottles, that's funny. But I haven't used most of them because I haven't unlocked most of them. In fact, it's funny because in this DLC, I just realized it doesn't show you the actually equipped ones. But in this DLC, I discovered something so major for me that is going to reshape every single one of my Elden Ring playthroughs. Blood Tax. I thought Blood Tax was just something that dealt a lot of bleed damage, because I did not bother to read it, because I felt like... I saw the icon and I was like, oh, it's for piercing weapons, I don't use those. I try it, I realize that it heals me, and it changed the DLC so much for me. Because suddenly, oh, I can play it safe, lend the weapon heart, and heal passively through the weapon heart. Or, I mean, I guess actively. Cool. So, but it's a base game weapon art. It's so funny that I did not find it earlier. But what else I can talk? So incantations, I haven't done much. The only incantation from the DLCs that I've used a lot was I've tried this one. Unfortunately, it's kind of trash. I believe there's like 2 Bear Communion incantation. I haven't found the second one. Okay, the one I've used the most is Ghost Flame Breath, because it looks like to me that it's a better version of Borealis Mist. And I mostly used Bale's Flame Lightning, which is fucking awesome as an attack. It's kind of funny that unlike every other Dragon Communion incantations, you don't actually need to use you don't actually need faith to cast it. And also, have I used... I didn't get to use the aspect of the Crucible stuff. Oh no, there's a spell that I've used a lot. Multi-layered Rings of Light. Very cool spell. Very, very cool spell. But outside of that, I haven't used much of the spells of the DLC. I try to use those occasionally, but like... It's just mostly stuff that I kept for my Mimic to cast, because I wasn't casting it myself. But yeah, no, I'm not going to go over that, because honestly, I'm just going to end the stream here, and this video here. So yeah, so overall my thoughts, pretty DLC. Boss fights are hard, some of them I think they are too hard for the for the wrong reasons. Mostly due to the fact that the damage is very high and Scadutree Gathering is kind of iffy as a way to get progress on your character. I think like it's going to be better when a full list... I mean, someone already posted a video containing all the Scadutree Blessing. But honestly, like, once a proper path to get all the Scadutree Blessing you could get through each area is being found, I think it's going to make the DLC a lot easier. But until then, it's going to be kind of frustrating in that regard. And I still think that even with Scadutree Blessing, some attacks just are a bit too much. But again, it's doable. It's absolutely doable. You just need to take the L and actually rethink your strategy, rethink your build, rethink everything. You can find a way, I believe in you. It's not like, don't get me wrong, there's some stuff that's absolutely all shit even in my opinion. But don't let the negativity of other people cut you off the fact that there's still a lot of awesome stuff in that DLC. And then outside of that, I have nothing else to add. I just want to finish this video, so I think I'm going to end the stream now. No one watched, from what I've seen. I haven't paid attention, but I don't think I've got a single other viewer. It doesn't matter. I got my thoughts out. I'll play the DLC again at my leisure, off stream. I mean, I haven't streamed most of the DLC, but I'll play it at my leisure. I'm glad I'm done with it. I'm glad I'm done with this first playthrough. I still think it was a very good experience. Thanks for watching.